Sam lived a quiet life in a small town where people knew him but rarely saw him smile after the day he lost his 2 kids in a sudden accident that changed everything for him and left his heart heavy with a sadness that did not fade with time even though the world around him kept moving. He tried to work and tried to speak with others, but every step he took reminded him of the moments he once had with his children, and every corner of the town felt like a shadow of his old life, so he slowly began to pull away from everyone around him and spent most of his days in silence wondering what meaning remained for him. One morning while he walked past an old market board, he noticed a small paper that looked out of place among the usual posters because it was handwritten and faded as if it had been waiting for someone to notice it for a long time. The paper said that a piece of swampland far outside the town was up for sale, and the price written on it was only $5, which made no sense to Sam because even empty land usually cost far more than that, so he stood there reading it again, unable to understand why someone would sell land for such a small amount. People passing by looked at him, and some even shook their heads as if silently telling him not to consider it, because the swamp was known as a strange place full of deep mud, old trees, and unusual sounds that made most people avoid it, especially at night. But Sam felt a soft pull inside him, almost like a quiet voice telling him that he should at least go and look at it. He did not know why he felt drawn to something so odd, yet the feeling stayed with him through the morning, and by noon he decided that he would visit the place and see what it really was. He drove out of town the same day with a small bag and a bottle of water, thinking that the trip would not take long. The paved road slowly turned into a rough path covered in stones and dry branches, and soon he reached a lonely wooden post with a faded sign showing that the swampland began beyond that point. The air felt different there, thicker and warmer, with insects singing loudly from the tall grass that moved gently in the soft wind. Sam stepped onto the muddy ground and felt his shoes sink slightly, but he kept walking because the strange pull inside him had only grown stronger. The land around him looked wild, abandoned, and quiet, with twisted trees leaning over pools of still water that reflected the sky like broken mirrors. Most people would have turned back at the sight, but Sam continued deeper into the swamp, moving slowly and carefully because he felt that the place held a quiet calm that he had not felt in years, and he wondered why such a peaceful silence existed in a place others described as dangerous. As he walked farther, he reached a small patch of dry ground, where he saw something unexpected, a fallen wooden cabin that looked as though it had once been a home for someone who lived there long ago. The roof sagged to one side, the walls leaned in uneven angles, and the door hung from a loose hinge, but the cabin still stood enough for him to enter. Sam stepped forward and gently pushed the door, which opened with a soft creak that echoed faintly in the still air. Inside he saw old tools scattered across the dusty floor, along with an uneven table and a cracked lantern that looked like it had not been touched for many years. Even though the cabin was in a ruined state, something about it made Sam feel a strange warmth, as if the place carried a forgotten story waiting to be found. He walked slowly around the small room, brushing away dirt from a few objects, until he noticed a small wooden box tucked beneath the tilted table. The box looked old but well carved, with a design of a tree rising from water etched across the lid in careful lines. Sam lifted the box with gentle hands and felt a subtle coldness spread through his palm, as though the box held something unusual inside. He sat down on the dry patch of floor and opened the lid slowly, expecting to find old nails or simple belongings, but instead the box held a group of rolled papers tied with a thin string and a small smooth stone that gave off a soft blue glow, even in the dim light. Sam stared at the stone, unable to understand how it could shine without any source of power. He stepped outside with the stone in his hand to see it more clearly, and when the sunlight touched it, the stone glowed brighter and warmer, as if it were alive. A gentle pulse moved through it, almost like a heartbeat, and Sam felt his own chest tighten with a mix of curiosity and a little fear. He wondered who had placed such a thing in the cabin, and why they had chosen to leave it behind in a swamp that no one visited. He unrolled one of the papers and found drawings that looked like rough maps with paths marked across the swamp, leading to circles and signs he did not understand. There were also short written notes made by someone who seemed to have been searching for something within the swamp many years ago. The writing spoke of a secret hidden deep under the land, a secret that could only be found by someone with patience and a kind heart. Sam read the lines again and felt something inside him stir in a way he had not felt since the day he lost his kids. He felt a small spark of purpose forming within him, as if the swamp had called him there for a reason beyond simple chance. For a long time he had felt empty, but now, in the middle of a place others feared, he felt a sense of direction building around him. He looked around the swamp with new eyes, wondering what secrets lay beneath the water, and the layers of fog that floated gently across the land. He held the glowing stone close and felt its warmth spread across his hand and up his arm, giving him a strange feeling of calm. The wind moved softly through the trees and carried the sound of distant water shifting somewhere unseen. Sam stood still, letting the moment surround him, because for the first time in a long while he sensed that his life was about to change in a way he could not yet understand. He had come to see a piece of land that cost only $5, yet he now felt that this land carried something far greater than its price, a hidden truth that waited for him to uncover it. He took a deep breath and made a silent promise to follow the clues and understand the meaning behind the glowing stone, the maps, and the forgotten cabin, because deep inside him he believed that whatever secret the swamp held might guide him toward healing and a new beginning. Sam stood in the quiet swamp holding the glowing stone as the warm light spread across his hand, and he felt a sense of calm that he had not felt in many long years. The lost feeling that once ruled his heart began to shift slowly, as if the land was trying to give him a new direction. He looked at the rough maps again and tried to understand the paths drawn across the page, but the lines twisted in strange ways that did not match anything he had seen before. Still, he felt a growing confidence telling him that he would find a way to follow them. He placed the map inside his bag, then took a slow walk around the cabin, trying to notice any sign of the person who had lived there, because the cabin felt like a place shaped by careful hands and thoughtful work. He wondered if the person had discovered the secret mentioned in the notes, or if they had left the clues for someone who would arrive much later. The thought stayed with him as he walked deeper into the swamp, holding the stone that pulsed softly like a quiet living heart. The ground became softer under his feet, and he stepped carefully to avoid sinking into the deeper mud. The tall trees stood like silent watchers while birds flew overhead, making short calls that echoed through the air. Sam felt as if the entire swamp had awakened to observe him as he followed a narrow path that matched one of the lines in the map. The path took him around a large pool of still water that reflected the sky faintly. He noticed that the glowing stone in his hand changed its brightness slightly when he looked toward the far side of the pool, as if guiding him in that direction. Curious and hopeful, he walked around the edge until he reached a cluster of roots rising from the ground. Between the roots he found a small wooden marker that had sunk halfway into the mud. The marker had the same carved symbol as the box in the cabin, a tree rising from water. Seeing it made him feel certain that he was moving in the right direction, and that someone long ago had planned each clue with care. He continued farther into the swamp until he reached higher ground where the air felt cooler and the light from the sky filtered through the thick branches above. There he saw the remains of an old fire pit surrounded by stones, and near it lay a rusted pot and a broken wooden cup. Sam touched the stones and felt a faint warmth, as if the fire pit still held the memory of someone who once rested there. He sat down for a moment and looked at the glowing stone again, wondering if the person who left it had once sat in the same place thinking about the same mystery. The thought filled him with a strange comfort, and he felt less alone than he had felt in years. After a short rest he stood again and followed a line on the map that led him toward a narrow wooden bridge stretched across a stream. The bridge looked weak but stable enough to cross, so he stepped onto it slowly, making sure the wood held under his weight. When he reached the other side, he heard a gentle humming sound rising from the ground, and he looked down to see ripples moving across the shallow water for no clear reason. Sam crouched near the edge of the stream and held the glowing stone close to the water. As soon as the light touched the surface, the ripples grew stronger, forming a small circle that widened slowly. He stared at the water in wonder because he had never seen anything like it. The glowing stone seemed to connect with the stream as if it recognized something hidden beneath it. Sam waited until the ripples settled, then stood again, feeling more sure that the clues were leading him towards something important. He followed the map to the left and reached a clearing that held an old wooden fence nearly covered in vines. He pushed aside the leaves and saw that the fence surrounded a sunken garden filled with small plants that did not match any wild growth he had seen in the swamp. The plants grew in neat rows and held shapes that looked carefully placed. Sam stepped closer and felt a deep calm spread across him because the garden felt peaceful, as if it were a quiet refuge in the middle of the wild land. He knelt near one of the plants and noticed a small wooden sign placed beside it with faint writing that almost faded away. He wiped the dirt gently and read the words that said healing leaf. He moved to the next plant and read its sign, which said bright root. Each plant had a purpose, and he realized that whoever built this garden had tried to protect rare plants that held value. Sam wondered why the garden was hidden in the swamp and why no one had spoken about it in his town. He looked at the glowing stone again and felt that the garden was connected to the secret mentioned in the notes. As he explored the rows, he found a small wooden bench leaning against the far fence. On it lay a notebook so old that the edges had started to crumble. He lifted it with care and opened the first page, reading the words written in a firm, steady handwriting. The notebook said that the builder of the garden had come to the swamp searching for a rare force believed to rest beneath the land, a force that could bring hope and change to anyone who found it. The pages spoke about many years of study and long nights spent listening to the land, learning its sounds and understanding its quiet voice. The writer believed that the swamp was alive in a gentle, guiding way and held a hidden heart that revealed itself only to those who approached it with patience and care. As Sam read these words, he felt a deep connection forming between his own life and the unknown person who had written the notebook. He too had come to the swamp at a time when his heart needed direction and comfort. The idea that the land could offer healing made him feel a sense of hope that felt new and warm inside him. He turned the page and found a rough drawing that looked like a large round stone placed on top of a tree stump. Beneath the drawing were the words "Center of the Land." Sam felt a shiver run through him because he believed that this drawing pointed to a place where the true secret could be found. His hands tightened around the glowing stone as he stood in the quiet clearing filled with soft light filtering through the leaves above him. He knew he needed to keep going because each clue led him deeper into the heart of the swamp and closer to the truth that waited for him. For the first time since the loss of his kids, he felt a strong sense of purpose building inside him, guiding him forward like a quiet light in the darkness. The swamp no longer felt wild or lonely. It felt like a place that wanted him to discover something that could change the path of his life. Sam left the hidden garden with a notebook held safely in his hands and the glowing stone resting inside his pocket as he walked deeper into the swamp, following the clues that now felt like a clear path placed before him. The air grew cooler as he moved through the tall trees and the sunlight dimmed under the thick branches above, but the stone kept a warm presence against his leg, as if guiding him in the right direction. Sam studied the map again while he walked and noticed a curved line drawn from the garden to a place marked with a symbol shaped like a circle inside another circle. He wondered if this was the center of the land described in the notebook. The idea filled him with a strong sense of purpose because he believed that the secret hidden in the swamp awaited him there. For the first time in many years, he felt that his steps had meaning, and that each moment carried him closer to something that could ease the pain that lived in his heart. As he continued walking, he heard the faint sound of flowing water that grew louder with each step. Soon he reached a wide stream that ran calmly through the swamp with clear water shining under the filtered light. A large fallen tree lay across the stream, forming a natural bridge. Sam stepped onto the trunk, carefully balancing his weight while moving slowly to the other side. When he reached the middle of the tree, he paused because the glowing stone in his pocket began to pulse softly, as if responding to something in the water below him. He reached into his pocket and held the stone over the stream. The water beneath him shimmered with gentle ripples, even though no wind touched it. Sam felt a strange connection forming between the stone and the land, as if the swamp recognized him as someone who had come for answers with a genuine heart. No fear in the silence because the warm pulse from the stone gave him comfort. After some time, he reached a small open field that held a circle of large stones standing upright around a single stump in the middle. The stump looked old and worn, but the careful arrangement of stones told him that this place was built with purpose. Sam stepped closer and noticed that the stump looked almost identical to the one in the drawing found inside the notebook. His breath slowed as he realized he had reached the place described as the center of the land. He approached the stump slowly and placed his hand on it. The wood felt warm even though the air around him was cool. He took the glowing stone from his pocket and gently placed it on top of the stump. As soon as the stone touched the surface, a soft light spread across the wood, moving outward in thin lines that looked like roots glowing beneath the bark. The stones around the stump began to warm under the light, and the quiet field felt alive in a way Sam had never experienced before. He stepped back and watched as the stone pulsed brighter than ever, sending a gentle wave of light across the ground. For a moment Sam felt a rush of emotion as he imagined his kids standing beside him smiling and guiding him forward like a memory made warm again. He whispered their names softly in his heart and felt tears rise, but he did not let them fall because the light surrounding him felt too peaceful and too sacred to break with sadness. Sam waited until the light grew steady, then touched the stump again. This time he felt a soft vibration through the wood, as if the land was speaking to him in a language made of warmth and calm. He understood from the notebook that the secret of the swamp was not something that could be taken or held in his hands. It was something that revealed itself to a person who came with a heart open to healing and change. The light from the stone grew softer until it settled into a calm, steady glow. Sam lifted it gently and held it in both hands. As he did, the warmth spread up his arms into his chest, easing the sharp pain that had lived inside him since the loss of his kids. The pain did not disappear, but it softened in a way that felt meaningful, as if the land was telling him that healing was possible and that he did not have to carry his sorrow alone forever. He sat on the ground near the stump and closed his eyes, letting the peaceful light surround him. Memories of his children came to him not as sharp reminders of loss but as warm scenes of laughter and love. He felt their presence in a gentle way, as if the land allowed him to hold on to their memory without breaking under the weight of sadness. After a while, he opened his eyes and looked around the quiet clearing. He realized that the swamp was more than just wild land. It was a place shaped by someone who believed in hope and healing. The garden, the notebook, and the glowing stone were all signs of a person who wanted to protect something beautiful within the swamp. Sam felt grateful for finding the clues and for being guided to this place that made him feel alive again. He stood up and walked slowly around the circle of stones, trying to understand why the swamp had been left forgotten and why the secret had never reached the outside world. As he touched one of the stones, he noticed faint carvings shaped like waves and leaves carved in gentle curves. The carvings looked similar to the symbols in the notebook, hinting that the land had a deeper story waiting to be uncovered. Sam felt determined to continue exploring because he sensed that the swamp held more truth than what he had seen so far. With the glowing stone in his hand and the notebook in his bag, he walked farther along a narrow path that led away from the center clearing. The path curved around a group of tall trees and opened into a larger area where the water spread wide like a small lake. The surface was calm and smooth like a mirror. Sam stepped closer and saw tiny fish moving lazily under the clear water. He also noticed old wooden posts rising from the lake in uneven positions, as if they were once part of a small dock or platform built long ago. He wondered if the person who wrote the notebook had used this place to watch the lake or gather plants for the hidden garden. While he studied the posts, he saw something shining under the shallow water near the shore. He knelt and reached into the water, lifting a small metal piece shaped like a key. The key was covered in mud, but still held a soft silver shine. Sam held the key and felt a new wave of curiosity rising inside him. The key was a sign that something else waited for him in the swamp, maybe a new clue or a hidden place he had not yet discovered. He looked at the lake, the trees, and the open sky, and felt a strong desire to understand the full truth behind the land he had bought for only $5. He knew the journey was not over. Something important still waited ahead, and he was ready to follow it. Sam held the small silver key in his hand while standing near the still lake that stretched across the quiet part of the swamp. The air carried a calm feeling as the soft sound of water touched the shore, and the trees around him moved gently in the breeze. Sam felt that the key was not just a lost object, but a part of the story that had been waiting for him since the moment he stepped into the swamp. The glowing stone rested in his pocket with a steady warmth that reminded him that everything he had found so far was guiding him forward. He looked across the lake and noticed that one of the wooden posts stood straighter than the others, as if it had not fallen over time. Something about it seemed different. He moved closer to the edge of the water and saw that the post had a carved line near its top shaped like a small opening. Sam walked into the shallow water until he reached it. When he touched the opening, the glowing stone pulsed softly inside his pocket, as if giving him a gentle sign. Sam took out the stone and held it beside the opening. The post reacted with a faint shimmer running down its wooden surface. Sam then remembered the key in his hand. He placed the point of the key near the carved opening and felt it fit perfectly into a hidden slot. When he turned it, the post shifted slightly, and a soft rumbling sound came from beneath the water. Sam stepped back as the water near the post began to move. Slowly a wooden platform rose from below the lake's surface, as if it had been resting underwater for many years waiting for the moment someone unlocked it. The platform lifted until it reached the level of the water and settled firmly. Sam felt a rush of amazement, because the hidden structure seemed to have been built with patience and skill by the same person who created the garden and the guiding maps. He stepped onto the platform and found a small wooden door built into its center. The surface was covered in moss, but the shape of a tree rising from water was carved clearly into the wood, matching the symbols he had seen in the cabin and on the box. Sam knelt and lifted the door, which opened with surprising ease. Beneath it lay a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. He held the glowing stone above the opening, and the soft blue light brightened enough to show the first few steps. Sam felt no fear because the gentle warmth of the stone seemed to calm every feeling within him. He began to walk down the steps slowly, letting the light guide him. The walls were made of stone and were placed carefully together in a way that suggested someone had built this place with strong intention and deep care. When Sam reached the bottom, he stepped into a small room hidden entirely under the lake. The room smelled like old wood and earth, but it carried a peaceful feeling that surrounded him the moment he arrived. Shelves lined the walls holding jars filled with seeds, dried plants, and notes written on old paper. A wooden table stood in the center with another notebook resting open as if someone had been writing there before leaving. Sam walked to the table and read the page. The handwriting was the same as the notebook found in the garden. The words spoke of a hope that the land would someday help someone find comfort and peace during a time of great sorrow. The writer had believed that the swamp was more than just land. It was a place where nature carried a healing force that could touch a lost heart and guide it toward a new beginning. Sam sat slowly on the wooden chair near the table. He placed the glowing stone on the surface and watched as its soft light spread across the room, revealing more details. There were drawings of plants that grew only in the swamp. There were maps showing underground lines of water that flowed beneath the land. There were long passages explaining how the writer had spent many years learning the way the swamp breathed and how its quiet strength had saved the writer from a time of deep sadness. Sam felt his heart soften as he read the words because they echoed the same loneliness and the same search for meaning that he had carried since losing his kids. It felt as if the writer had understood him even though they had lived many years apart. Sam opened one jar from the shelf and found seeds that looked well kept even after many years. He read the label, which said heart growth seed. Another jar said calm air leaf. Each jar carried something valuable collected with care. He realized that the hidden room was a sanctuary built by a person who wanted to protect the healing parts of the swamp. Sam wondered who the writer had been and why no one in his town knew about the person. He searched through the room until he found a framed paper placed behind some books. It held a simple message. If you find this place, you carry a weight in your heart. The land will help you if you walk with hope. Sam read the message again, feeling each word settle gently into his thoughts. He looked around the quiet room and felt that he had reached the true heart of the swamp. The glowing stone had guided him there, and now he understood why. The land had called him not to show him treasure or riches, but to offer him a place where he could face his sorrow without breaking. The peaceful air seemed to wrap around him, and he felt a warmth rise through his chest where only cold emptiness had lived for so long. Memories of his kids came to him again, but this time the memories brought gentle strength instead of sharp pain. He whispered their names in his mind and felt a sense of closeness that soothed him. After spending a long time in the sanctuary, Sam closed the notebooks gently and placed the glowing stone back into his pocket. He climbed the stairs and stepped onto the wooden platform under the open sky. The sun had begun to set, casting soft gold across the lake. Sam stood still, breathing deeply, letting the warm air pass through him. The swamp no longer felt wild or lost. It felt like home. He knew that he would stay and care for the land because it had given him something he thought he would never feel again. It had given him hope. Sam walked back toward the cabin with slow, steady steps, planning to rebuild it and bring life back to the garden. He wanted to honor the person who had built the hidden sanctuary and continue the work they had started. As he reached the cabin, he felt the glowing stone pulse softly in his pocket, as if offering one last gentle message. The swamp had changed him. It had shown him that even in the deepest sorrow a path toward healing could still exist. And Sam knew that his new life was just beginning.